Let's hear Marvin.
Hey, good morning, Junks.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I would be over it, but I actually tried to call in last week, and I got bumped off. So that's why
All right.
I still had this on my chest.
Go ahead. Get it off your chest. I want you to be
first
relieved
of all,
of this.
let me preface this. You're the only EB that I care about
Thank
in
you.
this town.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
But
you. God love you.
I just, I just don't understand, like, the lack of empathy for EB's plight before he ever took this job. I mean,
Eric
this is
Bieniemy?
the only job. Yeah, this is the only job he could have took. And that's the shame, because his press conference, when they asked him why Washington, that told me everything about his opportunity here. This was his only opportunity. And then he was sabotaged at every turn. He had no offensive line to speak of. The defense, which was supposed to be top 10 or top 5, turned out to be historically bad.
Can you take a break for a second? The offensive line. Didn't the Commanders bring one of his guys to play tackle from Kansas City?
Andrew Wiley.
I'm sure he was part of that.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree that was a mistake. But also, they brought him in knowing that the other offensive linemen on the team were worse. So what he was saying was, I need better pass protectors for this my system. But it didn't work out. I'll give you that. But that's one offensive lineman, and the rest of them were still trash. And then I like Sam Cosmi's attitude. I don't know how much I like him as a football player, but that's beyond the point. I mean,
you think he got a raw deal? What about the fact that the team's offense didn't really improve? I looked this up yesterday. I might be off by one or two rankings, but I believe in yards per game and points per game, they finished 26th and 27th, respectively.
Well, this is all why, Marvin, I said he never should have come here. I was stunned he came here. He was coming here to a team with an unproven quarterback situation, and as much as I rooted for Hal and wanted him to do well and think he can do well, it was a completely unproven situation, and if he didn't have immediate success, he was going to get fired. Like, why?
Yeah.
I didn't understand it.
And that's what I was talking about. I just think that people don't understand. I don't know if he failed as much as he gambled on himself, and then he couldn't really come off the brake. He couldn't come off the gas. He had this one chance to prove, and he had to keep the gas on at the detriment of a young quarterback. And that sucks because I think just like you said, EB, he ruined I think he might have ruined Sam Howell. And I don't know if Sam Howell recovers, but that by the end of the year, he looked shell-shocked.
Yes,
so, I mean,
I agree.
He had to see that. Everybody had to see that. Did he ever let off the gas? That doesn't even seem sane to me. So he's like a man who's possessed because he knows he's seen a lot of people get jobs that probably didn't deserve it. And one's coming to this team. Kingsbury never deserved a head coaching job off his resume. He got a job. Matt Nagy got a job who got from the same position he got. He couldn't get in, and still EB couldn't come up with. Still Eric Bieniemy couldn't get a job.
Right.
And I'm just saying that he had all this pressure, this unforeseen pressure, that he just never eased off a young quarterback. And then he was betrayed.
And that's why he wasn't
by a defense.
retained.
What?
Are you suggesting he should have been retained?
No, never. No.
He'll get another gig. Look, some guys,
Thank
I know.
you, Marvin. Thank you for the
Do
call.
I have empathy that he interviewed for a bunch of head coaching jobs and didn't get a shot? Yeah, I guess so. But I don't have empathy for him not being retained as the offensive coordinator of the Commanders. So they finished 25th in scoring, 24th in yards. So I was off by a couple of rankings. I don't have empathy, but he'll get another job. Joe Barry was an awful defensive coordinator, and he landed other gigs. I think he's been fired again. But these guys resurface all the time, and maybe, unfortunate for him, maybe he'll never get a head coaching job. I don't know. Like, I'm sure Joe Barry would love to be a head coach at some point.
He had limited options, and he hitched himself to a broken-down wagon known as Ron Rivera. Mm-hmm. He knew that Ron Rivera was under the guise of new ownership here, and that Ron had to basically win 11 or 12 games to have a prayer and holding on to his job. Like, he knew the situation coming in. I don't understand why everybody is so upset about Eric Bieniemy.
Not that many people
being thrown
are.
Overboard.
There is a loud minority of fans that believe he got a raw deal. He was interviewed in Seattle, according to Adam Schefter, and was considered for the offensive coordinator job in Seattle. My guess is if he sits out this year to collect his salary, which some people say is the wise move, he'll get a gig next year. I mean, Jason brought this up a couple weeks ago. Every team has turned over their offensive coordinator in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Every team.
He'll find a spot on a staff, whether it's as an offensive coordinator or as a position coach.
Just take solace in this. He's had an incredible career as a player, as a coach, and just think about all the money he's made all these years. He's fine. He's just fine. And he'll resurface somewhere. I don't know where. But I don't think he was very good here. And I have no idea how he interviews. But we got to stop talking about him. We got to stop talking about him. I mean, you guys were upset when I would ever defend Carson Wentz. The Bieniemy talk is getting into that same category.
I agree. No need to talk about C-Dub or EB2.
I actually, by the way, speaking of Commanders coaches, there have been a flurry that have been hired.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and you know what's kind of shocking? They looks like they are keeping Mayhew. They've given him a different title.
Yep.
And God bless him. You want everybody to be employed.
I mean, he's worked with Peters before. They have a relationship.
And Hurney is going to at least be a consultant. So he's still going to be in the mix. And I actually, I don't want to see people lose their jobs. But it is interesting because those guys were not they were not successful.
Right.
In their run.
No, they were not.
But they get to stay on. It is interesting. I don't know. They added Ken Norton. They're adding a lot of guys that have a real experience.
Yeah, add Anthony Lynn to the offensive staff. He'll be the run game coordinator.
Yeah. Ken Norton Jr., I think he's going to be linebackers coach. I guess he wasn't particularly good as a D coordinator in Seattle, but people say, as a position coach,
it seems like
he can excel.
It seems like it's going to be an expensive coaching staff.
Yeah. I don't think they're sparing any expense,
I don't think you're going to get a lot of these former head coaches just signing up for regular position coach money.
Do you like the adding, though, of head coaches? They had a head coach on the staff last year besides Ron Rivera. They had Jack Del Rio. He was whacked. Because you can go out and get Steve Wilks now. He was whacked in San Francisco.
The Wilks thing is weird, and I do feel like you can make the argument that he was scapegoated. I feel like you can make that argument. But when you read into it more, that just seemed like a bad idea from the beginning. And I kind of get the logic, but Kyle asked him to use the same system that had given them the number one ranked defense before, and they didn't want to change the system. So Wilks was in there, and he couldn't coach the way he really wanted to. He had to coach like the other guys, and it was just a bad fit. That seemed like destined to fail.
I think he was scapegoated, but look, in the Super Bowl, Kyle called a timeout.
No doubt.
Because he didn't like the way the defense was set up.
He did that multiple times, they say, in the regular season.
So he didn't like the guy's philosophy.
He's the top guy.
Yeah.
No, it's not even his philosophy. Wilks wasn't given the freedom to run his own defense. They told Wilks. They talk about it.
But he was still the play caller.
He was, but he had to do their system. And that just kind of handcuffs you. If you can't be free and kind of coach the way you want, I can actually feel bad for him, for sure. But people love Steve Wilks. Like, his reputation is sterling. And
he got a raw deal as a head coach in Arizona. I think he was a one-season head coach.
He's a one-and-done.
And then he was an interim head coach, and then he was there. The numbers were really good overall. Second half of the season, though, and in the playoffs, there were a lot of weaknesses.
Yeah.
That said, they held Patrick Mahomes to 3 points in the first half.
And I think they did very well in takeaways.
And 19 in regulation. Think about that. If you'd said before the Super Bowl, hey, if he told Kyle, hey, my defense, we're going to hold Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to 19 points, you'd think you'd win the Super Bowl.
That's a dub for you, yeah.
Right.
You finally got the
monkey win the
off your
Super
back.
Bowl.
Yep.
We're going to win the Super Bowl. You hold them to 19 points.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thinks he did a bad job. It's just, I'm telling you, it wasn't a great fit from what Kyle wanted. What Kyle wanted was kind of crazy.
But I do think, back to the Commanders, and if you want to chime in, 800-636-1067, the staff hiring has given me more confidence overall in the coach.
Yep.
Dan Quinn came in here. You knew he was at the press conference. You knew he was going to have Cliff Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator. You knew he was going to have Witt as his defensive coordinator. And you know the Quinn's a defensive guy. And it seems like he's brought in all these experienced guys. So it does give me more confidence in the head coach. The biggest thing in the entire offseason, though, is the quarterback. And it's crazy. We can get into this next. I saw another mock draft that this one had Jaden Daniels number 1. Like
I'm telling you.
I saw another one that had Drake May number 1. Like, I do think Caleb is the most likely to be the number 1 pick. And the Bears have to decide what they're going to do with Justin Fields. But I think for the next couple of months before the draft, it's going to be who's going number 1, who's going number 2. It's up in the air.